Okay, so this is probably going to be short and sweet because I've already done this video. I had it almost to the end and I turned the power off by accident. So I'm redoing this whole set of notes. Anyway, here it goes. We're starting matrix or matrices if it's more than one. And it's basically a rectangular arrangement of numbers in rows and columns. And so we call those columns and rows dimensions. The way we name them is by their dimensions. This is called a 2 row by 2 column. So the rows are horizontal, the columns are vertical. And so m by n, that's not times, m by n or 2 by 2 is how you would call these. All right. The individual numbers in each matrix is called an element. All right. So that's important that we know how to name them, a 3 by 2, a 2 by 2, a 4 by 2, whatever, 4 by 3, whatever, and what those numbers represent and what an element is. All right. So before, and that's the bell. Great. Don't you just love our bells? This is really important right here, so I want you guys to write this down. And the main part about this that's important is you can add or subtract matrices only if they have the same dimensions. You may need to pause this so you can get this down. And so these have the same dimensions here, 2 by 2, and notice how they're added and subtracted. Top left, top left, top right, top right. You add the corresponding elements to one another, or you subtract the corresponding elements to one another. And so be careful with these subtraction ones because of that subtraction sign. And so again, you might need to pause that to get all that down. Now I've already done this like I said, so I'm just going to go over what I did. Since I'm adding here this whole matrix to this matrix, it's 3 plus negative 1. 0 plus 4, negative 5 plus 2, and negative 1 plus 0. That's how we got this answer here. Okay, so on this next example, we're subtracting. The key with subtracting is remember your signs and what happens when you got double negatives and such. Remember, corresponding parts of each matrix is what you subtract. So 7 minus negative 2. Minus a negative is a plus. 4 minus 5, negative 1. 0 minus 3. Negative 2 minus a negative 10. That's minus a negative, which is a plus, so that becomes an 8. Negative 1 minus negative 3. Negative 1 minus negative 3 is a plus 3, so that becomes a 2. 6 minus 1 is a 5. And so adding and subtracting, you got to have the same dimensions. And remember that the corresponding element is what you add or subtract. Alright? Now, let's do what's called multiplying by a scalar. This is basically distributive property for a matrix. This negative 2 is multiplied by every element in this matrix. So, and normally it'll be written like in the middle or something. It doesn't matter if it's high or low. Negative 2 times 4. Negative 2 times negative 1. Notice that I put the answer or the product in the same place. Negative 2 times 1. Negative 2 times 0. Negative 2 times 2. Negative 2 times 7. That's called multiplying by a scalar. Alright? So far we're just talking about adding, subtracting, and multiplying using matrix. So basic operations. Now, let's kick it up a notch. Let's kind of combine some of those. This says solve a matrix equation for x and y. And so if you look at the elements of this equation right here, notice you got a matrix being added to another matrix and an equal sign in another matrix. I wrote this up here in the original notes that I did that I erased because this problem right here is a representation of what we're going to do here. Remember order of operations. Order of operations say do whatever you have in the parentheses first and then you multiply. Because this means multiply. This 3 out here means multiply. So the first step that you should do is to add the two matrices. So I add these together, and when you do that, you can't add 5x and 3 and get 8x or something. They're not like terms, so you just have to write it out. Negative 2 and 7. 6 and negative 5. Negative 4 and y. So now these two added together equal this right here. And now I use the scalar multiplication by doing 3 times everything in here. 3 times 5x plus 3 is 15x plus 9. 3 times 5 is 15. I scratched it out because of the work I did. That's 15. 3 times 1 is 3. And 3 times negative 4 minus y is negative 12 minus 3y. So, notice this just keeps coming down. What it is equal to just keeps coming down because I haven't done anything with that. Now, truthfully, guys, I'm only concerned with the x and the y and the corresponding elements in each of those. And so that's why these were crossed out right here. Because 15x plus 9 corresponds to this negative 21, but since that equal sign is right there, that's why I set those equal to each other. I don't add them, I set them equal to one another. Negative 12 minus 3y corresponds with this element negative 24, and there's an equal sign there. That's why I put that equal sign there. Going ahead and solving for x and y, you get y equals 4 and x equals negative 2. And so this is something that you can do. Most of the time, matrices will have just numbers in them, but every so often in a situation like this, you'll have a variable in it. So to review, what we've done is talked about how to add and subtract matrices and what they are, how to name them by dimensions. We also talked about how to add them and subtract them, that you have to have the same dimensions in order to add and subtract. And all the properties, something I didn't talk about, is all the properties of math, associative property, and distributive property, and all those properties, if I could find it. All those properties are true with a matrix. All math is true all the time. That's what I love about math. There's never a time when it's not true. It's always true. There's sometimes when some laws and rules mean things change, but it's always true. Alright, so that's basic operations with matrix. Sorry I didn't actually work this with you. I had already made these notes, but it turned off right when I was about to record. And I bet you those last notes were better. Well, it depends on how you feel, because they were 12 minutes long and now it's 7 minutes and 50 something seconds. Toodles!